say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red cloud, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? Please sit. Good afternoon. I'm Alice Greenwald, President and CEO of the 9/11 Memorial and Museum. It is my distinct honor to greet you and express our appreciation that you have joined us as we pay tribute to the 6 innocent people and an unborn child killed, and the over 1,000 who were injured in the first attack on the World Trade Center 25 years ago today. This past month at the Memorial and Museum, we have dedicated the entire month to commemorating this milestone anniversary. We've been particularly privileged to connect with survivors of the 1993 bombing, who in past years have observed this date privately, but had not previously honored the anniversary with a visit to this sacred site. Many of you who worked in the buildings or responded to the scene are here with us today. And on behalf of the entire Memorial and Museum family, we are deeply honored to have you with us for this solemn tribute. I also want to acknowledge and welcome members of the Memorial and Museum's Board of Directors, elected officials, and distinguished guests in attendance today, notably former New York City Mayor David Dinkins, who was in office at the time of the bombing. Thank you all for gathering with us on this somber anniversary here at the Memorial's North Pool to commemorate the lives of those taken far too soon. At the 9/11 Memorial and Museum, every day of the year, we remember the lives they led, and we stand with their families and their friends in solidarity and shared grief. For many of us, it is hard to believe that a quarter century has passed since that snowy winter day. The 1993 bombing was the first act of terrorism at this site. As we know all too well, it would not be the last. The date of February 26th is engraved in our memories, and so we gather together year after year to show our support for those who mourn and for those who experience the chaos, confusion, and terror firsthand. At this place, it is our sacred obligation and our privilege to preserve the history of this tragic event, pay tribute to the 6 innocent people whose names are etched in bronze on the panels beside us, and recognize the endurance of the survivors. We also honor the brave men and women who risked their lives to save others. I'd like to thank Kevin O'Toole, Chairman of the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, and Rick Cotton, Executive Director of the Port Authority, for also being with us today. The Port Authority and its staff have been stalwart leaders at this site, champions of rebuilding and renewal. Their dedication to remembrance and their demonstration of resilience have been models for all of us. I'd like now to invite Chairman O'Toole to provide a few brief remarks. Kevin.
Thank you. There's nothing I can say or the Port Authority can say to the families to console you, to understand your sorrow. 25 years ago, tragic event, took a loved one. And so I'm going to say the only thing I can say on behalf of the Port Authority is we're sorry. We're sorry for that day. We're sorry for your loss that has stayed with you each and every day for the last 25 years. And I know those words won't mean much or do much, but that is all we can say. I talked to a first responder today who talked about as he walked into the basement and talked about what he came upon. I spoke to the first assistant for the police chief, who was one of the first individuals on the scene, and he said they were like descending into hell. I will tell you that in 1993, the world was very different. We were not ready for what visited us on that day. America was not ready for what visited them that day. And for that, I say I'm sorry. And we are sorry. But I will say this, on behalf of the Port Authority, each one of you, your family members and neighbors and uncles and aunts and grandchildren and co-workers of those 6 wonderful families, we will be here for you every single day. Today, tomorrow, 25 years from now. That is what I can tell you. Our condolences.
Thank you, Kevin. And now I'd like to invite Rick Cotton to join me at the podium.
Thank you, Alice, and good afternoon. I'd like to echo the Chairman's comments, Alice's comments, and express my heartfelt condolences to the families of the loved ones who lost their lives a quarter century ago. I'd also like to remember the more than 1,000 people who were injured that day in 1993 and the countless number of Port Authority staff and other individuals who will be forever emotionally scarred by having lived through that tragic attack and the subsequent events of 9/11. Each year since that tragic event, the family members of those who died in 1993 have returned to this site to pray and to grieve, keeping alive memories of their loved ones. Rest assured that the entire Port Authority grieves with you and will continue to do so always. Sadly, this tragic event was only the first of other ruthless attacks to come, including 9/11. The attacks serve as a reminder that we must always remain vigilant and take whatever steps are necessary to prevent additional incidents and loss of life. The best way we can pay tribute to those who were lost in 1993 is for this agency to make sure that no other family has to experience the pain and suffering you've lived with for the past 25 years. In closing, I'd like to thank the 9/11 Memorial and the Museum and its president, Alice Greenwald, for hosting this remembrance ceremony every year so the family members have a fitting location to come and pay their respects to their loved ones. And I again say to the families, in the presence of your friends and all those gathered here today, on behalf of today's Port Authority, we stand with you, we grieve with you, and we will never forget. And we will commit to rise higher and stronger. That is the ultimate recognition we can give to those who are lost.
Thank you, Rick. On February 26, 1993, Charlie Makish was director of the World Trade Center Department at the Port Authority. In that capacity, he was the senior executive in charge of recovery and reconstruction at the World Trade Center after the bombing. We are so pleased to have him with us today to provide his own reflections on this milestone anniversary. Charlie.
Thank you, Alice. 200 feet south of where we stand today, 20 feet below the surface against the south wall of the North Tower. A quarter of a century ago, terrorists detonated a 1,600-pound bomb. The result of the bombing was catastrophic. It tore a crater the size of half a football field in the belly of the Trade Center, disabling the electrical, HVAC, communications, operating and life safety systems, and the elevator systems. It sent smoke and soot up the towers and some of the adjacent buildings into 10 million square feet of space. The blast wave itself also destroyed everything in its path: cars, walls, building contents, more importantly, taking human lives and injuring thousands. Though left disemboweled of its operating systems, flooded at its base, covered with soot and smoke, the structure, and thankfully most people survived, I'd say in large part due to the efforts of first responders, the Port Authority police, Port Authority staff, and its professionals. The restoration and recovery of the Trade Center was nothing short of miraculous. It demonstrated the resilience and the determination of the people of this incredible city and bi-state region. Early the following morning, at a briefing of the two governors and the mayor's office, after they had seen the devastation, Governor Cuomo asked, how long would it take to restore and reopen the Trade Center? When we told him 10 months after the summer was over, we probably could reopen, he told us we didn't have 10 weeks. He said, or the towers would sit empty as monuments to the demise of the economy of the financial district, Lower Manhattan, and possibly the city itself. We were told to demonstrate resilience and ingenuity and not let the terrorists disrupt our way of life. And that became our motto for the recovery. The two states, New York and New Jersey, committed their full resources. The City of New York pledged its assistance, and the Port Authority Board did something that it had never done before. It authorized us to take any and all actions required for the full restoration and recovery of the World Trade Center. Under the direction of my deputy, Bob DiChiara, and the supervising engineer, Alan Reese, we marshaled an army of over 4,000 to restore the operating systems and the building infrastructure. It was really amazing. The labor unions came together as a team. And for the first time, we had carpenters carrying steel for the iron workers. We had electricians and plumbers pushing brooms to get the debris out of the way so they could get to their work. We had workers, laborers, and cleaners carrying furniture, which was not their job spec, so to speak. But we did everything we had to do. By the night of the bombing, by the way, the towers stood lit against the night sky. They were not going to stand there dark. A short 3 weeks after the bombing, on March 19th, we moved the first tenant back into the World Trade Center. It was Governor Cuomo into Tower 2. He commented that his law books were cleaner than the day 10 years earlier he had put them on the shelf. Following the governor, 100+ firms who had moved out of the 10 million square feet into temporary locations were moved back in, and within 3 months, we were fully operational with new security protocols, life safety, and communication systems, which, by the way, served us well on 9/11. The Trade Center was better and brighter than ever, and it had learned its lesson. Today, the 9/11 Memorial Museum has the artifacts that tell the story of the '93 World Trade Center bombing, as well as the World Trade Center's return and recovery. Speaking of the families, I must relate to you that on the 5th anniversary, we suggested to them that we hold a remembrance every 5 years thereafter. They told us that they come each year not as a remembrance, but as part of a larger family, to bring comfort to each other, renew their strengths, and support each other in their future endeavors. We committed to them at that point that we would return each and every year, and we have. Of course, there are also many who have come each year from the World Trade Center staff, PA staff, first responders from '93, law enforcement, the prosecutors from the U.S. Attorney's Office, tenants, and more. The 9/11 Memorial Museum has also helped to ensure that all those who responded and restored the World Trade Center, and as important, the families of those who were killed, continue to come together each year. 9/11 was not the commencement, but it was the culmination of an attack that was launched in 1993. I would like to ask Bill Macko and Steve Knapp to come up and join me on the stage now to lead the readings of the names. And I'll see you here the same time, same place next year.
John D. Giovanni, Robert Kirkpatrick, and my father, Stephen Knapp.
Monica Rodriguez Smith and her unborn child, Wilfredo Mercado, and my father, William Macko.
Thank you, Charlie, Michael, and Steve. If ever we want to look at what resilience and ingenuity means and looks like in the aftermath of senseless destruction, just look around the World Trade Center. That's what it's about. In closing, I would like to thank you all once again for being with us to mark this somber anniversary. I'd like now to invite Michael, Steve, and any other family members of those killed 25 years ago to lead us in laying roses at the names of their loved ones. Once the families have placed their roses, I invite survivors of the 1993 bombing, first responders, and all guests who wish to do so to join in making this same gesture of tribute, which will mark the end of our commemorative program today. Thank you.
you.